But what's interesting is there's a lot of milestones, I guess, that IMMAF has established for the sport. Recently, you've released, as far as sports development go, this new youth development program, and it's interesting that you're targeting that young demographic because, as you mentioned, you're talking about the future, right? So you have this new youth development program. Tell us about this program and its objective.
So, the objective with youth is simple. Without youth, the sport can, the actual sport can't exist. And when we say youth, it's recreational and it's the pathway for the sport to have the longevity. At the end goal is, as I said, the sport was born upside down on a tip. It's based on professional promoters, that will thrive on those athletes making those transitions from core sports. And now with the emergence of mixed martial arts as a core discipline, you have that new generation coming through. So, when we look at youth, that's the bedrock of the sport. Now, if we can change the perception and the whole industry from the ground, then you've got a sport that has longevity. Because if not, you're going to rely on the core sports themselves, so judo, karate, boxing, and you're going to rely on that old transitional process of somebody who's got a good background in wrestling will make that transition into MMA. That will always happen. But now you've got the emerging sport of mixed martial arts where this generation are just training from the age of 8 all the way through. That's a different proposition. Now you've got issues where if you're coming in from a core sport and you're up against somebody that's been training from the age of 8, who's now 22, and all he's done is mixed martial arts, it's not rocket science. So it tells you that it's a different proposition. You've got issues with that. So that's how we are going to fuel the next generation. So we've created an app. We have the grading ladder, call it what you like. We have a fundamental program that allows you to see the techniques that are broken down for the sport of mixed martial arts. And obviously they're coming from other core sports. We get it. We understand it. We are taking it from the other core sports. And that's fine. We're in a family and, we should not be fighting against ourselves in terms of the combat alliance. And, that's one of the issues that we have, where we have a few combat sports that are pushing against us from trying to develop because they're afraid of athletes migrating from their sport to mixed martial arts. The way I look at it, it's a big piece of cake. We should all use each other and all move up the ladder at the same time. Use us. It's a platform where MMA is in the public side at the moment. Use it for your own core sports because that's part of the transitional process. So the youth MMA is something that we targeted because that's where you can change the perception. You can change the whole game. Coaches, referees, timekeepers, women, you name it, everything that you want to do, you have to educate from the starting block. And the starting block is recreational and youth. If we can get to that bedrock, then, for us, I think that we've done a great job in terms of that pathway for athletes to come through that transition. So a good example of that as the only international federation, one which is WADA approved as well. So we were successful to get our WADA recognition in December of 2021. And that gives us the only international federation that's been signatured to WADA in terms of governing MMA. As part of that transitional period, we made a conscious decision to make a recommendation for no headshots under 18. So as the only international federation for combat sports to have no headshots as a recommendation is a massive statement when you look at all the other core sports that are having headshots, boxing, taekwondo, muay thai, in terms of that development for under 18. Right. And so our first Youth World Championships was in 2019 with over 25 national federations and about 300 athletes. And to have no headshots, the event was fantastic in terms of that preparation as part of the pathway and as part of protecting the next generation with concussion. We all know what's coming. Rugby, football, other sports are now looking at the concussion, and a repeat of, headshots is a massive topic that has been well documented over the years. Boxing, has serious issues with, people that have been dying in the sport, literally. And, people say that MMA is a dangerous sport. No, it's not. There are other combat sports that are far dangerous, but the perception, the way it looks and the fact that it looks dangerous is completely not backed up in terms of when you look at the data. So, I mean, we have all the data. We have one of the highest medical commissions in terms that sits on there, neurologists that sit on there, make the recommendations for us to, guide the national federation. So we're very proud of the work that we do. We have all the stats to back it up in terms of whether it's an eye poke or whatever, in terms of, whether it's a break or whether it's a concussion. If our athletes get knocked out, we send them for a CT scan, and the list goes on in terms of protection. But ultimately, coming back to youth, we made a conscious decision. We wanted to protect the sport because, as you know, the sport was relatively new. Putting kids, and this is the way it's said, in a cage is barbaric. The cage is a safety area. The fact that it does what it's supposed to do, in terms of, we understand that, the fact that the sport is safe. The sport is even safer now with the recommendation of no headshots under the age of 18. Now, national federations can choose to modify that, but when it comes to our competitions, we are making a concerted effort to ensure the safety development of those athletes from the age of 12 going all the way to when they become plus 18, in terms of that assurity to ensure that we've got the quality of that pathway to ensure the next generation are being looked after at every level. So we're very proud of the fact of that. And with our first Youth World Championships in 2019, that justified the recommendations, and now it's a standard thing in federations. Some were pushing back, didn't want it. They wanted headshots under the age of, sort of 16, 17. I get it. And I said, look, let's just go through, let's get all the data. Let's make sure that we're growing. We've got time. You've got to remember, combat sports have been out there for over 100 years. We're only 7 years in the development program. Slow down, guys. We've got plenty of time, man. Your time will come. And, if it's proven that we can lower the age for headshots, we'll do that. But let's start from a solid base. We're all in it together. We're all growing. And we'll see the benefits of that, because the next generation that will come through that, those guys that started at 12 through our program, those potentially could be your 2028 athletes going to the Olympic Games, or 2032, that have been safely looked after over this process as part of those key indicators of ensuring that the sport is, governed at every level. So we're proud of the fact of those recommendations, and as part of that, ensuring we have the right gloves. We use Kerrith gloves to reduce the eye poking. In fact, less than 1% that we actually get. That shows that does work. And the kit that we've done in terms of identifying the brand, we're the first ones to use rash guards on to clearly identify the difference between amateur and pro. So, you get, when you come to our events, you get it. It's amateur. The rule sets are slightly changed as well to obviously safeguard the athletes in terms of getting more damage. So no knees to the head, no elbows to the head or a ground opponent. So, those are all part of that development and the protection of those athletes going through. And it works well for us as part of that development for youth.